Good morning, everybody, and a welcome to Spa-Francorchamps for another edition of the Michelin Le Mans Cup. After the latest visit to Imola for the European Le Mans Series, saw these cars not go there because instead they had a couple of races at the 24 Hours of Le Mans weekend, one on Thursday, one on Saturday morning. And this, therefore, will be race 5 of the championship, having had a couple of 2-hour races in Barcelona and at Paul Ricard. However, sadly, we are slightly behind time, might be possibly because of the typical Spa-Francorchamps weather that we have this Saturday, and we're right in the middle of, in fact, a Ligier European Series qualifying session, which has had to be red flagged with a handful of minutes still left on the clock. That's now been declared as a finished session. We will get to Ligier European Series later on in the day because there is one race billed for them later this afternoon, just after lunch, for an hour or so. And in a bit of a deviation from normal, we're actually going to have a Sunday morning Ligier European Series race as well, which we will have covered for you live via our other channels. However, introductions first of all. Good morning, my name's Johnny Palmer. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Graham Goodwin, the editor of dailysportscar.com. We're here having had not really a great deal of sleep, in truth, but we are raring to go for pretty much a full day of action because we're going to see Michelin Le Mans Cup, ELMS qualifying after this, and the Ligiers, together with a Michelin Le Mans Cup race later on this afternoon. So I can't wait for all of this, Graham. And Spa has not disappointed with the weather conditions.
Yeah, we know it's Spa. Good morning, everybody. And if you're looking at these pictures, and of course you are, it's not quite that bad as we look out of the window here, Johnny. It's not the weather that's delaying the session. It is going to be those barrier repairs that look like they're well underway. So we should be underway with action pretty soon. Of course, it's epic. An iconic 7-kilometre circuit, 19 turns as it twists and turns around the Ardennes forest, and with a rise and fall that would, well, it would grace Strictly Come Dancing's final, wouldn't it? That's the view up through Erouge to Radion, and that is the work underway on driver's right, past the epic, relatively new stand. We're going to have to stop calling it new pretty soon, but we're going to be getting, it's a full weekend from this point on, and pretty much all of it, Johnny, we can bring you turn by turn. Spa for round 4. After this, in about a month's time, or just under a month's time, we go to Silverstone. First time back for the European Le Mans Series to Silverstone, but the first time ever for the Le Mans Cup and the Ligier European Series at the home of British Motorsport, before Portimao, of course, for the season finale, as is now the tradition.
Yes, and of course at Le Mans we had a couple of very entertaining races for shorter distances in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, so fewer points on offer per race. But well done to CLX Motorsport for winning the Thursday race in LMP3. Remember that LMP3 is two-pronged this year, as in there are silver-silver lineups, which means that they are entered into LMP3, and there is still the LMP3 Pro-Am element as well, a race that was won, the first race of the Le Mans week, by Rinaldi Racing, the 71 crew of Stefan Aust and Felipe Fernandez-Larza. Saturday's race won by DKR Engineering, but also some new names at the sharp end of GT3 who are not necessarily full season entries, got to check that, but Mercedes winning on each occasion, however from different teams. So Get Speed winning the Thursday race and Team Motorpart, the 65 crew, on Saturday. You always get the extra bit of interest, I suppose, turning up at Le Mans, which bolsters the entry, and the trick is then trying to hold on to that interest, but not necessarily the rest of this season, but moving forward into future years.
Absolutely, and the next session, of course, will be the GT3 qualifying practice with those barrier repairs. We'll keep you informed on expected time for us to go live on track. We'll tell you that this qualifying session, unsurprisingly, has been declared wet. What does that mean? It means that the teams, should they care to do so, can now use the Michelin wet tyres.
So 3 different qualifying sessions we are expecting, each of 15 minutes duration. It's a long track here, one of the longest we visit, not quite as long as Le Mans, but near enough 7 kilometres. And because it's such a large footprint, we may even have a scenario where the weather's different from one end of the track to the other. It starts in that peculiar way with a hairpin bend, a very tight hairpin at La Source, and then that epic run through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. And slightly peculiar way that the Michelin Le Mans Cup sessions are run, in that qualifying goes from the heritage pit lane, which is the downhill bit, or the endurance pit lane, the downhill bit that then climbs uphill towards Raidillon, whereas the race and the pit stops in the race will be done on the Grand Prix pit lane, which is near enough dead flat and slightly easier to access, you might argue, as well, with that very relatively narrow, what feels like a narrow pit lane entry road that peels off just before the final corner, the partway through that chicane, the bus stop chicane as it's called, and then you re-emerge immediately after La Source. But the GT3 cars are now being wheeled out of what are very small garages here. There's not a great deal of space for the teams to operate in. Not quite into blistering sunshine yet, but we're hopeful of that later on.
I can tell you it's steady rain outside the commentary booth window. So these cars, I'm sure, will be starting the session on the wet
all
weather
cars
tyres.
on standby, all Le Mans Cup cars on standby, GT3 cars on standby.
Graham Boursier, our race director for the Le Mans Cup, the hardest working man in motorsport.
GT3 cars to the fast lane, GT3 cars to the fast lane.
And we're about to go green, Johnny, with the work completed up at Raidillon.
But this is going to be tricky, considering that it is the bronze-rated driver and Vanina X returning to the championship as well, which is fabulous to see, GG.
Yeah, after illness, and great to see Vanina back. She'll be out there looking to punch hard in what, of course, is her local race.
1 minute to start the session. 1 minute to start GT3 qualifying session.
So 60 seconds to go. That clock is ticking down. And we're about to get into action. And remember, what we've always seen with these Michelin Le Mans Cup sessions is this will build throughout the 15 minutes. And of course, all these drivers, all bronze ranked, will be looking to find out where the grip is and where the grip isn't. And let's hope there's less of the latter.
30 seconds to start the GT3 qualifying session.
But yes, the rain having arrived this morning, so therefore these first few laps may well be quite tentative. They'll want to try and get a banker in as early as possible and at a pace that everybody is comfortable with. But as I say, you've just got to assess the track first of all, and it's a long track as well, with undulation changes, a large footprint. That run from La Source all the way up to Le Mans is a big distance, and it might be that the rain is not as bad up there. Anyway, we are live. The session goes green and 15 minutes underway, but easily 5 minutes of this 15-minute segment will be done just on the outlap and building that tyre temperature. So you haven't got a lot of time to play with here.
No, indeed. It's going to be interesting to see. Particularly interesting to see how Vanina goes in this session, coming back to this effort after some little time away. There's been no shortage of drama, as is its wont for the Iron Dames efforts in motorsport, with the huge incident in the opening race of the season for Marta Garcia, and then Vanina stepping back with illness. But she is the local girl, knows this track like the proverbial back of her hand, has raced here an awful lot down through the years. I can remember being in this press room. In fact, it was the old press room when Vanina finished on the overall podium in a Le Mans Series race in an LMP 900 or an LMP1 Dallara back in the day, schooling a rather rude Belgian journalist in one of his post-race questions to her. Also, she's done the Spa-24 here. She's done the Fun Cup 25 here with her dad and all of her siblings. So it'll be interesting to see just exactly what she can squeeze out of both the Porsche package and the track in its current, and it has to be said, still deteriorating form, with that rain still steadily falling.
So it's Alessandro Cozzi and Eliseo Dono who lead the championship on 50 points. They had a win last time out during the Road to Le Mans events, the first race going their way. But Philippe Saga and Rory van der Steur are not that far away, just a couple of points back. Andrea Bellicchi, together with his teammate Lorenzo Ferdinando Innocenti, are 2 points away from that. So it's 4 points separating 6 drivers in GT3. From a visibility perspective, though, this is nightmarish stuff. It's okay if you're one of the first cars to be released from the pit lane, but if the conditions stay like this for the rest of the day, then that first lap of the race is going to be particularly trying because of all the sprays being thrown up into the faces of the various drivers. And generally speaking, it'll be the bronzes in for that opening stint as well. Has to be bronzes in this session. So this is why it's best to start tentatively with a conservative outlook and then maybe just push for a bit more speed if the track dries up.
One potential drama, by the way, and it could come the way of Vanina Ricks under investigation crossing the pit exit white line. So we'll keep an eye on that. At the moment, she's tiptoeing around here as others are getting up to speed. I think discretion the better part of valour this morning in this session. Under 12 minutes to go, as you can see on the clock running down the left-hand top corner. And, yet to get to the stage where any recorded top times are coming this morning. It is a packed weekend, Johnny, from this point forward. 2 Ligier European Cup series races, the Michelin Le Mans Cup 2-hour encounter, and of course 4 hours for the European Le Mans Series. Great value for the money for some hardy spectators that are in the grandstand in front of us on the start-finish straight, the Grand Prix start-finish straight, and of course up at Raidillon. And we're looking forward to, we hope, better weather tomorrow and welcoming a larger crowd, and what looks like an absolute monster crowd that is building for Silverstone. Huge number of pre-sales in European Le Mans Series terms, and tickets still available. And for that matter, for Portimao as well, which is always an absolutely fantastic way to finish the season for all of these series. And you are always more than welcome in the European Le Mans Series and the support paddocks. Please do come if you get an opportunity, and bring friends.
Yeah, because your ability to access certain areas as well is way more than if you've been to Silverstone recently for a British Grand Prix, for instance. There's just that feel of community, which you get in Formula One as well, but there are certain areas that are off limits, whereas you're encouraged to, find your favourite driver, seek out that autograph if possible. And fabulous as well to have European Le Mans Series back after, I think, a 6-year break. Like you say, we've never had Ligiers there. We've never had the Michelin Le Mans Cup on British soil either.
Yep, I think you can get a weekend ticket for the European Le Mans Series package at Silverstone for, I think it's less than you would actually spend on a burger and chips for 3 at the Grand Prix.
If that's not quite accurate, you kind of get what Graham's pointing at, I think.
Well, the other thing I'd say, by the way, depending on what motorsport you're used to attending trackside, what you get is that access. And that means full circuit access. It means, if you opt for one of the premium tickets, come and mooch around in the pits, the paddock, where you will see the drivers, the team members out there, and they're always happy to chat if they're not terribly busy. Everybody loves an enthusiastic fan, and particularly if you've got the kids with you, they understand how important that is in building the sport that we all love. It is 9 minutes to go. Time's beginning to come in. It is Lorenzo Innocenti in the number 17 Kessel Racing Ferrari 296 that tops the times. Then Vanina Ricks, not quite representative times yet, and then Philip Sager in the number 11 Code Racing Development Aston Martin. So Ferrari from Porsche from the Code Racing Aston Martin. One other change, by the way, to mention, the Iron Dames effort is run, of course, by Proton Huber Racing, and a change for the storied Huber Racing squad, in that Christoph Huber, the founder of the team, has decided to step away from operational control of the squad, focusing on other things in his life, which is a big change for a team that has seen all sorts of ups and downs down through the last couple of years, but remains, I believe, the longest lasting and the most successful current Porsche one-make championship team in Europe.
Some early times, potential times, already deleted. So Alessandro Cozzi and Heiko Neumann, who drive an AF Corsa Ferrari and a Team Motor Park Mercedes, respectively, have had their second laps effectively cancelled because of track limits. So there's an idea of how hard these cars are pushing. Motorpark Mercedes down towards the right-hander at Campus, and then heading by where the old circuit used to feed in at Stavelot, now called Curve Paul Frere. But windscreen wipers still on, well, sort of a reasonable setting. That's more than intermediate. So needing, therefore, to clear the screen readily. The other issue may be that there might be a bit of fogging of the windscreens from the inside. Warm body on a coldish car is never a good mixture. So Heiko Neumann coming up towards the bus stop chicane now, staying off the paintwork, staying well clear of the curbs and just easing it through. Did catch a little bit of curb there coming through the final right and left corners, which are turns 18 and 19 on this configuration, and Neumann will go second fastest, so he keeps it between the white lines this time around, only half a second away from the pace-setting Lorenzo Innocenti in his Kessel Racing Ferrari number 17.
That's another change, and that is Alessandro Cozzi, who briefly goes to third, but is shuffled back because Philip Sager goes top of the pile. It's a 139.859. The changes are coming. The increment's not that large. It does show just how careful the drivers are being. It is Philip Sager, the number 11 Aston Martin, leads the session now from Lorenzo Innocenti in the 17 Kessel Racing Ferrari.
Remember as well that I was just thinking, oh, who got pole positions at Le Mans? But we had a couple of sessions that effectively did not happen because of red flags all over the place. So qualifying was a non-event, and they had to draw the grid instead from the free practice times. So the only pole positions we've had to this point, the first for Heiko Neumann, that was at Barcelona, and then Lorenzo Innocenti was on pole for the Le Castellet round in May. So since then, no extra points, which were up for grabs at Le Mans, but nobody could achieve them. Number 11, Aston Martin, has had a big problem sideways at Raidillon, and actually amazingly keeps it within the track limits whilst spinning. Big lick of flame as well from the left-hand exhaust for Philippe Sager. So he'd set that 2:39.8, and then I think on his very next lap, had that moment at the top of Eau Rouge there.
Watch this.
Yeah, I've done the time, now I'm going to have some fun. No, of course not, and that could have been a much bigger accident, actually, considering the sort of state of cars we've seen heavily damaged through the years here at Spa. But he got away with it, and Philippe Sager will obviously have to wipe this current lap, lap 4. Does have enough time to get around, though, with just under 5 more minutes to go, to cross the line and start another lap. The question is, are the conditions getting better or are the conditions getting worse? I'm going to suggest that it's the latter at this stage, judging by the amount of spray, or they're about the same, and therefore a 2:39.8 is going to be tough to beat.
So yeah, not getting better, and if anything, that rain is coming down a little harder with 4.5 minutes to go. Philip Sager rode his luck there a little bit, but did beautifully well to bring it back under control. Code Racing Development, the number 11 Aston Martin, leads the way. There are other cars out on track that are on their Delta times ahead of that schedule. Lorenzo Innocenti is one, Alessandro Cozzi is another, Vanina Ricks is a third. But can they hold this together? Cozzi certainly can. He goes through now. It's a 2:39.6. Vanina Ricks comes through. She's third. So we've now got 3 cars in the 2:39s, under 4 minutes to go, and trouble for the 33 Ferrari. That car has rotated.
And that is at Piff Paff, I think I'm right in saying. So the right and the left after the double left at Pouhon.
If he can't get that car going, we might get an intervention here, because that's not in a great place either. Innocenti, by the way, goes back up into provisional pole position. Finds reverse. No car's actually been by since we've been looking at this, so if he can get that car back into drive, and away he goes, and no further dramas.
That's bizarre, because I was actually reading Le Fagna corner as the other way around. I thought he'd gone through the right-hander and then lost it through the left-hander. Actually, the track goes in the other direction. It's a good job I wasn't in the car at that point. Yeah. So it was Le Fagna after the double left at Pouhon. I had the corner right, but just the direction of the circuit slightly out of sync. So that was Murat Chuidoroglu in the 33 and gets away with it. But obviously yellow flags were being displayed at the time. I don't think actually anybody was going through that part of the circuit.
I don't think they were. He was
so
very lucky. That nobody's had their style cramped apart from the 33 car. Top 5 cars, Johnny, after the first sector on the lap we're currently watching, 2.5 minutes to go, are all up, in some cases very well up, on the provisional pole time. In the case of Lorenzo Innocenti, currently 7/10 up on his own best time through Sector 1. But Alessandro Cozzi is quicker still than that. So it's going to come down here to just exactly what the conditions are like in the very much more technical Sector 2. I can tell you the 33 Ferrari that was in woes just a little while ago has just passed our position and is continuing on his way, so no further dramas for them.
So looking forward to seeing who is going to be the best of these times. Clearly either conditions are improving or everyone's just becoming more accustomed to how much grip is out there, and this could be a massive improvement for Lorenzo Innocenti.
Yeah, both he and Alessandro Cozzi have found big time in the middle sector. Okay, Neumann goes through. There's an improvement for him. He stays, though, 5th place in the Team Motor Park AMG. Through comes the 51 Ferrari, though. Cozzi
doesn't
track
count.
Limits.
Yeah.
Vanina Ricks to the top, though.
I did wonder about Vanina because she topped the bronze test yesterday, and that's always indicative. However, Innocenti was slightly behind her on the track and has the space to go even faster. There's still a minute to go, so those cars that have just crossed the line will get one more stab at this. 1.2 seconds is Lorenzo Innocenti's advantage over the Belgian racer Vanina Ricks, though. It's Kessel Racing Ferrari number 17, quicker than 83 Porsche from Iron Dames, then another Ferrari, this time from Italian squad AF Corsa and Alessandro Cozzi. But Cozzi, though he could have improved on that lap, wasn't able to because he went over the track limits. However, he's just done an absolute best through the first sector. There's still time in that car.
Yeah, and that absolute best is half a second up on the previous schedule for provisional pole. This will be the last shot that any of these drivers get at it that are in that Sector 1 and coming into Sector 2. But still a couple of cars crossing the line that can still improve on their current lap. One of them goes through. It is the Biogas Ferrari. Stays 7th, though, but improvements are coming.
So Ricks now in the middle sector. She did a 43.8 through the first sector, and bearing in mind almost a second faster than that was Alessandro Cozzi. So he's looking the best on these final laps. The checkered flag is now being displayed on the start-finish line. Improvements all over the place, even though they may not elevate any car. So Fabrizio Broggi's just done a PB, 243.5 in his Ebby Motors Porsche. 95 is 6th fastest as Cozzi now comes out of Le Fagna and is about to enter the final sector of his final lap.
First car to complete this session will be the number 33 Kessel Racing car. Potential improvement here, but I don't think that it has improved up to 6th, but just about everybody else is on a better time than we've seen so far in this session. There is opportunity here, Johnny, for pole position to change hands. The moment Kessel Racing's Lorenzo Innocenti is in the pound seats, but Vanina Ricks don't think is quite there. Alessandro Cozzi and Philip Sager, though, are right in the window. And a gaggle of cars coming now down through Stavolo, down through into the bus stop. Will we see a change? First across the line is the AMG. And that car improves, stays 4th for Heiko Neumann. Here comes the 51 Ferrari, and that is Alessandro Cozzi to the top. And he's 7/10 clear. That is a fantastic final sector. Vanina Ricks improves but stays 3rd. Innocenti has gone back to the top, a 2:36.722. So big changes at the very end of that session.
Fair play to Cozzi because he kept the lap legal, and it was a very good one at a 2:37.3, but he could not hold back Lorenzo Innocenti's pace because he's blitzed him by almost 7/10 of a second to, I reckon, now nab a second pole position of the season.
Yeah, Philip Sager, by the way, in the Code Racing Aston Martin, grabs 4th at the death there. So despite the fact that the rain is still falling, it seems that either confidence is coming, or at some point there are better conditions for some of these teams. 95 EB Motors car, Enzo Fabrizio Broggi, that car comes through, a further improvement, and finishes this second in 6th place. So it is going to be Castle Racing's number 17 Ferrari on pole position, and it will be an all Ferrari front row with Alessandro Cozzi for AF Corsa, these two rival Ferrari teams, of course. It will be an all Ferrari 296 GT3 front row ahead of the mixture that is the Iron Dames Porsche of Fernando Ricks and the Code Racing Development Aston Martin on the second row.
And I realised from purely racing points, we've still got 75 on offer, but it condenses that gap from the third place duo of Bellicchi and Lorenzo Innocenti to now 3 points to the championship leaders Alessandro Cozzi and Alessio Dono from what was 4. So valuable, these points for pole position, when you consider the top 6 drivers, the top 3 teams are separated by just now 3 points. And a great second pole position of the season after success in Le Castellet in the south of France for Lorenzo Innocenti, and ably supported by Andrea Bellicchi. We'll see Bellicchi in the race for the second stint also. But because we are slightly behind time after the difficulties with the Ligier European Series qualifying session, no interval as such at all. Wave the cars in for the GT3s, and already the LMP3 Pro-Am session is now live, Graham. 16 cars and another 15 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, they're trying to claw back some of the time we lost those barrier repairs, aren't they? And it is 2 Ducanes in this session. The remainder of the 16 car field, so 14 Ligiers in this now Toyota Turbo V6 era, remember, for LMP3. I was at Silverstone Festival this weekend, and it was a bit of a time warp when the endurance legends came out, and it was that familiar Nissan V8 rumble in amongst those, because yes, the earlier LMP3 cars are now historic race cars, but it's a fundamentally different soundtrack nowadays for LMP3. And these cars and their performance levels have taken a step forward in this new era.
So the LMP3 Pro-Am part of the championship, led by Felipe Fernandez-Larza and Stefan Aust after their double win at Le Mans. They've had some cracking results prior to that as well, although have not yet won a more standard 2-hour race. Remember, this season we've gone back to exactly 2-hour races rather than the 1 hour 50 we had last year because of this new engine coming in.
I think I'm right, with the exception at the moment of Silverstone.
Yes.
Because there's no data there in terms of fuel consumption. So I think at the moment, I think we'll see a 1 hour 50-minute race at Silverstone. Whether that changes, we'll keep you posted.
Indeed. But Felipe Larza and Aust, a second place in Barcelona, a third place in Le Castellet. That means that the wins in the 2-hour races have so far come. Opening race of the season was run by Rinaldi Racing's number 66. This was in class, by the way, so Steve Parrow, who shares with Griffin Peebles. They were victorious in LMP3 Pro-Am, and in the same class a few weeks later at Le Castellet, it was a victory for ANS Motorsports, Julien Lemoine and Paul Trajani in the 84 crew. But as I say, neither of those teams currently lead the championship. Trajani and Lemoine are second, but by a significant margin, because they had a nightmare week at Le Mans, only scoring a total of 5 points, whereas their rivals got the maximum of 30 points. So Stefan Aust and Felipe Fernandez-Larza were really laughing at the end of the week, thinking we've got a massive leap on the rest of the championship, but there are still so many more points on the table to potentially win.
Yeah, it's worth saying, by the way, great place. If you're a follower of endurance racing, great place to spot where the next bit of Pro-Am talent is coming from here. Look back at the results in the Le Mans Cup down through the last decade or so, and there'll be some very familiar names that have found themselves in later seasons in the European Le Mans Series, in the FI World Endurance Championship in the years where we had the LMP2 cars, and of course the 24 Hours of Le Mans. This is where everybody learns their trade. That's what this is all about. A training ground for the teams and the drivers, whether or not that is the AM drivers as we're seeing in this session, or young pros coming into and through endurance racing. Increasingly a very viable career path for young talented drivers. It's remained a very accessible way of getting a lengthy career. So under 11 minutes to go. As the teams get up to speed, we'll be seeing the first flying lap times shortly.
And this again is for bronze drivers only, because remember, because it's called LMP3 Pro-Am, you have to have a minimum of 1 bronze in the driver combination. That's then supported by, in most cases, a silver, but actually in car 64 we got Pierre Caffer supporting Michael Doppelmayr, so he's gold, as is Felipe Fernandez-Larza. They're the only golds in LMP3 Pro-Am. Already a car off the road, though, at Le Fagnes. That's the 28, which has had a gravelly moment. The 23 events racing car of Terence Woodward.
Yeah, he'll be disappointed with himself there. Terence does like to get fired up. He's one of our longest-standing Le Mans Cup drivers.
From a spectator point of view, and I label myself under a spectator, by the way, it's been so frustrating this year to watch how much speed Terence has had.
He has.
And he's had 2 non-finishes in the longer races. And just, I've seen him in the paddock afterwards just looking so downbeat, because he knows that potentially they could have been both podium finishes. Again, you've got to just eject that from your mind and go, this is the second half of the season. We'll see how we do. And he's one of the quickest qualifiers in this format as well. It's more of a level playing field because of the weather conditions, but I still think he could do well, but he's got to keep it out of the stones, obviously.
Top of the times that are trickling through at the moment. Julien Le Mans for ANS Motorsport's number 84 car are much quicker than anybody else. It's not always, though, Johnny, the best way to run these sessions. At the moment, he is 6 seconds clear of the next quickest car, that is Horst Felbermayr in the Reiter Engineering number 77. But it's not always the best way to do that. We'll wait and see just exactly what happens in the next 9 minutes, but for the moment, Julien Le Mans and the ANS Motorsports team can grit their teeth and watch the timing screens and keep pushing for more.
Julien took pole at the start of the year at Barcelona. Terence Woodward took pole position at Le Castellet, so there's another indication as to how quick the 23 car can be, the 28 car can be for 23 events racing. That's one of the many Ligiers, but we do have 2 Duquesnes, as Graham's mentioned, in this division of the race as well, for CD Sport of Spain and for our Race GP. The French squad, number 88, our race with a couple of cars in the technically fastest class as well, although the cars are identical, but the driver combination allows them to generally perform a little better in the race, which is today, by the way. So later on this afternoon at 3:55 is the official start time, through till 6:55.
Oh, trouble for the number 9. That's not the 77, that's the 99.
So that is more motorsport.
It's Mark van der Snel.
It
Red
is.
flag. So what's happened here? Yeah, Mark's lost it under braking and into the barriers. Not a huge hit.
No.
But
that corner, particularly in the wet, is tough, though, because you're approaching downhill. So at pace anyway, coming out of the sequence at Le Combe at the highest point of the circuit, and then Bruxelles, the old virage corner, is always a bit tricky, especially when you're 2 abreast through there in the race. But just caught a damp patch, I think, rather than any curb, and the car has flipped around with very little warning.
that's bad news indeed for Julien Le Mans, because he was almost a second up on his previous best time, looking to gap this field early on. And we're going to pause this session at pretty much the halfway mark, Johnny. That's going to be a challenge for all concerned to get back up to speed. There'll be more pressure here. Julien Le Mans, under the red flags, crosses the line in front of us. Sort of good news, bad news for ANS Motorsport, isn't it? The good news is, with the session times frozen, they sit atop the times, and they sit atop the times by 5.7 seconds. The bad news is they could have gone quicker there, but with the red flags coming out, we're not able to do so. There is the ANS Motorsport Ligier. And intervention on hand for Mark van der Snel, one of our father and son combos, something we're seeing quite often across the world of endurance motorsport. Can tell you, by the way, the rain is still falling reasonably steadily. It's not the great big globs of rain, is it, though? It's kind of... I wouldn't say It's light.
It's a mizzle.
That's a really good, in the middle of, yes.
Yeah, so not slightly more than drizzle, but it's that the fine rain,
Yes,
that
fine
soaks
rain,
you right through.
Yes.
Just between mist and drizzle, basically. So it's just very Spa-esque. I wasn't surprised as we drove in earlier to see it like this, and there's a little bit of low cloud hanging around too. The Nürburgring, their latest NLS race last weekend, suffered from low cloud, which meant the whole day was out of sync, and that's typical again of the. Well, some people say it's the same forest. Actually, the Ardennes, the Eiffel, it's just an extension of the
extension
other.
of it. Yes.
Yeah. So, just what happens in this part of the world.
Yep. So weather is very Spa at the moment. Cars coming through to complete this lap under red flags. I think it will be a reasonably rapid recovery of the 99 car and then back to green. And in fact, it's already back on hard standing. Don't think there would have been much damage to that barrier. It was a bit of a kiss. It's a matter of whether or not any of the tyre stacks have been displaced. Mark's absolutely fine. There is a bit of damage to I'd say right rear.
Yeah, the wedge on the back of the rear right wheel is torn away a little as well.
Also looks as if that wheel is not exactly vertical.
True. Well, a toe link can easily be bent.
Absolutely.
We were shown the replay in slow-mo, but actually at full speed, that was a bigger impact than I had initially expected. Yes, Mark's able to get away, and I'm not hugely surprised by that, but I think the car's going to need some work. And the problem is we're racing today as well, but in a number of hours from this point, so it all depends how quickly the car can be returned to the team. And then almost how much space they've got to operate in those smaller garages to do a repair such as that. But I do agree the camber on the rear right is not exactly as it started the session.
Well, there's full support here from Ligier for these cars as well as their own Ligier European Series cars, of course. So no doubt the expertise and the parts will be here available. And I think there's time too. Shot the number 10 car there from Racing Spirit Le Mans, Christian Gysi. And currently 9th in the order. Just run down the order as we stand at the moment. ANS Motorsport, as we said, with Julien Lemoine, is topping that timing and scoring from Reiter Engineering's Horst Felbermeyer. Ben Stone for Breton Racing, 3rd quickest. Romano Ricci in the first of the Duquesnes from RSGP sits 4th quickest. Motorsport 98's venerable founder Eric de Doncker sits 5th. More Motorsport at the moment sit in 6th place with Mark van der Snel, but pretty clear that car will not be taking any further part in this session. Then it's the 58 car, GG Classics. James Sweetnam in that car. That's not a regular name for GG Classics. That's a late change. Stefan Aust for Rinaldi Racing, 8th quickest. Then Christian Gysi, we've just seen that car, the number 10 Racing Spirit of Le Mans car. The second Duquesne, CD Sports number 31 of Shahan Sarkisian. Here's the incident that's brought out, this red flag. Rattled the tyre wall. I don't think it's displaced much. And then completing the order, it is Inter Europol's 34 Ligier Tim Kresick, Andrew Ferguson in the P4 Racing 27. All of these are Ligiers, by the way. Rinaldi Racing, Steve Parrow, the 66 car. Terence Woodward, not up to speed yet in the 28 from 23 Events Racing. M Racing's Michael Doppelmayr in the 64. And then propping up the order at the moment, the 44 Team Verage car, Jacek Zielonka. That is the 1st through 16th as we wait for things to get back underway.
Yeah, GG Classics to this point has had Fraser Ross and George Nakas as their drivers. But as you say, James Sweetnam plugged into that car for the first time this year in Michelin Le Mans Cup. He ran last year in Cool Racing's car.
Thanks to our reigning LMS champion, who's clearly listening in. Good morning, Nick Adcock. Tells us that George Nakas has injured his wrist. And James is stepping in to save the day. So good to hear. Good to hear. But hopefully George not in terribly much pain. Wrist injuries are nasty and painful.
It depends again how that has been suffered as well. Because if it's a driving injury, then sometimes the real crack because
it's hands off, isn't it?
Well, if you've caught the steering wheel when you're having a moment, then that can be very, very painful. At the same time, I do know a lot of these drivers enjoy extreme sports away from racing.
Absolutely.
Too. So who knows? But we'll try and follow up that story through the course of the weekend. But James Sweetenham getting a late call. As I say, he's experienced Le Mans Cup before with Graf 2 years ago, with Cool Racing in 2024. So he knows the drill, he knows the format, but this will be potentially first time driving with the new engine.
Exit.
And there is confirmation from Gwen Bossier that we will be underway again very shortly. It's rather compromised the session, though, for everyone that is still in it, because they've all got to do an outlap again, and that's going to take
Pit exit is open, session has resumed.
About 4 minutes, probably. I suppose they're not starting from a completely cold start, because there is some knowledge now of the track, but we've been stopped enough for the tyre temperature to have ebbed away. They'll all be on wets, of course, but brake temperature will be have nose dived too. So just a little bit of a feeler lap, and then they're not going to have too much time, but to push probably for 2 laps at best, and those further back in the queue from the pit lane may only get 1 stab at it as a flying lap.
Yep, so 7 minutes remain. Here are the first part of that train. Still a couple of cars on pit lane. Racing Spirit Le Mans, Christian Guissi not yet emerged. Neither has Ben Stone for Breton Racing. They now emerge as I speak. So we have all the remaining cars, with the exception of Mark van der Snel, back out for another crack at this. If anything, rain is easing off. It's not going to make much of a difference with only 6.5 minutes to go. But perhaps bodes better for the track action that follows here.
What we're not getting is any sort of dry line so far. So it's still raining, but yes, the rate of rain may be a little less than it was at the start of the LMP3 Pro-Am session. Double left-hander at Pouhon for Julien Lemoine, who is currently fastest, and by a big chunk, nearly 6 seconds. But everybody else has not really had a fair crack of the whip yet. And these sessions do tend to crescendo, particularly when they're the bronze only, as the bronze drivers get more and more used to how hard they can push the car. Better to just work your way into it rather than potentially fling the car off into the scenery and then there's a big damage to fix, or just a delay into getting the car back in time for the race. So this is all deliberate, to just work your way slowly and surely into the session, but the red flag has not necessarily helped with that method. Leading car then is the Lemoine 84 for ANS Motorsport, and it will be the first car to go on to a new flying lap. And therefore, with 2.5 minutes still on the clock, yeah, we'll get 2 stabs at this.
Yeah, they come from our position in the other pit lane. A steady stream of LMP3 cars emerging from the mist and the spray down at Stavelot. First across the line is the 84 car, so he's going to have a clear track ahead of him. That will be an advantage in these conditions. Anybody who's in the train, it's going to be trickier. Spot the line and spot where the cars ahead of them are. At the moment, I'd say advantage ANS Motorsport here in more ways than one. Here comes Julien Lemoine through Rouge up to Radion, and executes that with no dramas other than the ones he's feeling through the seat of his pants, I'm sure.
Again, the harder you push, the more the car's going to stick, but you have to have faith in that aero working, and it's very much present on even these baby prototypes. Yes, they don't look perhaps as menacing as the LMP2s that we'll see later on in the day in the European Le Mans Series, but they are still hugely impressive bits of kit. And whereas the GT3s in the previous session were a little more reliant on their mechanical grip, you've got to push hard, particularly through Eau Rouge and Radion, past the scene where Mark van der Snel had his moment, losing the car into Bruxelles. Very little warning about that. And now through the left-hander, so this is the tumbling down the hill through Pouhon, Le Fagnes, and down to the bottom at Campus.
And he's already 3/4 second up on his previous best time. And no one else is matching that pace at the moment. This looks very good for Julien Lemoine.
Others that are putting in some decent times from a personal best perspective. Romano Ricci in the 4th placed 88 RHGP car. And finding a bit of time in the mid-pack, Tim Kresick in his Inter-Europol competition, 34, 11th fastest to this point. We're also monitoring on our graphics Shahan Sarkissian.
Indeed. So going to see some improvements I'm not seeing anybody, and it's a further improvement, by the way, the middle sector from Le Mans. He is 2 seconds up on what is already a 5.7 second advantage. Someone's going to find something here in the last 3 minutes, Johnny. It's going to be a mighty bridge to cross for anybody looking to get onto terms with this man. So Michelin Le Mans down through the gears, through the bus stop, get it pointed in the right direction and then gun it for the line, and we're going to see a new fastest time in this session in just a few moments. 2:31.2, currently 8 seconds quicker than anybody else. That will be a gap that closes, but by how much?
He was on course to be 2 seconds faster than his best already. In the end, it was 2.4 clear of the earlier times. Horst Felbermayr goes second fastest for the 77 Reiter engineering car. Terence Woodward not that far away, and Ritchie did turn in his personal best in Sector 1 into a second best time, but he's still 4 and a bit seconds away from that awesome Julien Le Mans time.
Yeah, that's 2 times in the prevailing conditions, and both sides of this red flag infected qualifying session. Under 2 minutes to go, and at the moment Julien Le Mans has just owned this session, and he's quicker again. He's over a 10th quicker than his own personal best through Sector 1.
Championship leader, remember, Stefan Aust, after 2 maximum point scores during the Road to Le Mans events in LMP3 Pro-Am. Aust is 6th fastest for Rinaldi Racing in the Ligier number 71. But on course for that, what could be crucial point, Julien Le Mans, and everybody's going to find it so difficult to, well, home in at all on those 4 seconds that he has as an advantage there.
No doubt at all, Julien Le Mans is faster pretty much everywhere, but there's a huge advantage in Sector 1. To give you an idea of how huge an advantage, Romano Ritchie is second quickest in this session. He's just gone through the first sector quicker than he's gone before, and his time through the first sector, which of course involves Rouge Radion, is 1.4 seconds off Julien Le Mans. Is that setup? Is that what is it? It'd be interesting to see what we can gather from, if he'll tell us, from Julien post-session, and why would he? He's quicker again. It's going to be it's a further half second up. He's going to be into the 2:30s at least. 35 seconds to go.
Sector 1's all about straight line speed. It's all about good downforce. It's about bravery, though, as well, from a driving perspective.
And I've got a feeling there's a fair element of that on show here. He's coming through the bus stop, 21 seconds to go. You know what? If he wanted it, there's another lap here, and he's the only one that would. So if he's, he'll be hearing from the team, of course. There is nobody else within a literal country mile here. Crosses the line. It's a 2:30.799. 4.7 seconds clear of Romano Ritchie. There are improvements coming from other cars. They are not within seconds of this.
Oh, there was a touch at Le Mans there, which involved at least the 27 car of Andrew Ferguson for P4 Racing. Shahan Sarkissian, the Lebanese racer, will get the checkered flag this time around, so 31's going to be no better than second. But actually, of the 2 Duquesnes, then as second and third, Romano Ritchie secures that 2:35.4 to back up the same manufacturer but different team. So CD Sports second fastest, RHGP third quickest, Reiter Engineering 77 for Horst Felbermayr is 4th fastest. There's lots of green on our screen showing personal best times, but nobody's going to get anywhere close to the 2:30.7 of Julien Le Mans.
That's a remarkable performance in very tricky conditions from Julien Le Mans. And looking further down the order, 4.6 seconds. So Shahan Sarkissian just edges Romano Ritchie back. Trouble for the 44 for Christian Gysi. Is that after the checkered flag?
Yes.
It is.
Yes, so actually, well, it's being shown as Jacek Zielonka, 44, which I don't think... Oh, no, that is correct. He's the bronze. So Gregory de Cyborg races with Zielonka, and he was trying to get to the pit lane because remember that the pit's in the qualifying session, as the GG Classics car is now going pretty slowly as well. You get into the pits after La Source for this part of the Le Mans Cup weekend, and in the end, Zielonka has dealt with that fairly well, having to go against the flow of traffic, but using the huge bit of runoff there were you to go straight on at La Source to do a quick U-turn and can get into the pits at the end of the session.
Well, we're going to have a quick turnaround, I'm sure, of the next class, the LMP3 class. So let's just run through the runners and the qualifying order in LMP3 Pro-Am. ANS Motorsport, Julien Le Mans with a masterclass in those conditions. 2:30.799, over 4.5 seconds quicker than the next car. That is the CD Sport number 31 Duquesne of Shahan Sarkissian. This is our pole setter in class. Romano Ricci just shuffled back right at the death there in that session in the second Duquesne. This time it's the 88 car for RSGP. After that, it's all Ligier. 77 Reiter Engineering car, Horst Felbermeyer. Stefan Aust, championship leader in the Rinaldi Racing number 71. Then Terence Woodward in the 28-23 Events Racing car. The 98 Motorsport 98 car of Eric de Donker. 34 into Europol from Tim Kresick. James Sweetnam in the GG Classics car. The 58 car in 9th. And rounding out the top 10 is the 62
Cars 84 and 31 to scrutineering.
Remarkable.
There are a couple of cars that are going to be looked at for taking the checkered flag twice, because I noticed James Sweetnam was still circulating because of that confusing nature of finishing the session and then having to pit immediately. So it looks like he may have gone by the pit lane entry road to the endurance pit lane, and that's what we're waiting for now. 30 seconds to
start the LMP3 qualifying session.
So further 18 LMP3 cars set to come, and this is uniquely in LMP3 racing, the only class and session, only class where you will see all 4 chassis options. Ginetta and Ades added to Ligier and Duquesne.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. LMP3 qualifying session has started.
And away they go.
And this also due to be the biggest in terms of the entry, because 18 cars in LMP3, 17 that we've just witnessed in the Pro-Am part of the category. 43 cars are due to start the latest round of the Michelin Le Mans Cup just before 4 o'clock this afternoon, with hopefully an uptick in the weather form, although to start like this and maybe then a drying track would generate a fascinating race, particularly as the silvers and golds take over at roughly half distance. So out they go. You've talked about Ades. There's a couple of those cars in this session, the 4 and the 7 from Nielsen Racing. Ginetta, number 3, which had a great run at Le Mans.
First ever class win for Ginetta at Le Mans.
Yeah.
In any class, in any competition. And White Bricacek we've got shown ready to go in that car. That car, though, has not left the pits yet. Did see the car on the pit apron. So whether or not they're just playing the smart game and letting this field get on with it, count to 30 and let Wyatt go, if indeed it is going to be Wyatt, because that could change as it clears the timing sector. So 18 cars, 2 Ades, 1 Ginetta. It is 3 Duquesnes. The remainder of this field, again, the numerically dominant Ligier. And now the Ginetta does clear the timing beam and is on track. So all 18 cars on track. Will these weather conditions be a leveller? That could be quite interesting, couldn't it? Some talented drivers in this session. Some familiar names to us, maybe some less familiar to some of our viewers, joining the huge number of people turning to endurance racing in the wake of this new era, hypercar era, of course, in the FI World Endurance Championship. People finding out that there is a whole range of racing that they perhaps knew nothing about, and some fascinating storylines developing. If anything, Johnny, that rain is coming down more heavily now.
We might be in a scenario here where actually the LMP3 Pro-Am session is quicker than the LMP3s, but they'll still be reordered for the grid later, as in the gold-backed race numbers. These cars will be ahead in a split grid system. There used to be this scenario before LMP3 became split, where if a GT car was faster than an LMP3, that's where it started on the grid, and it meant that the race starts were quite interesting at times, but not entirely the safest way to launch a race onto a wet Spa track, for instance.
So in terms of the championship,
yes.
the ones to watch, Johnny, are?
Not a great week at Le Mans. However, Alvise Rodea and Pierre-Alexandre Provost have a lead of 4 points over Cedric Ultramar and David Drew. So Provost and Rodea running the 87 CLX Motorsport crew, and Rodea's doing the qualifying.
What a season they've had, the CLX
Tremendous.
Motorsport and LMP3.
Yeah. And then Ultramar and David Drew in the other car from that team.
97, yeah. They've bossed it this season. The one to watch is ANS Motorsport. Remember, setting pole position in the earlier session, number 6 car has pitted immediately in the hands of Marcus Pommer. The other car to watch in this session might just be Wyatt Brickercheck. Why? Because Wyatt crosses the line now and has got a clear track ahead of him. No spray, no traffic to deal with, just focus on his lap time. He stayed away from what is pretty much a 16-car train and is a good 30 seconds back on track now. So I'll be keen to see what happens as his sector times develop. He'll be hoping this session stays green. 11 minutes to go, or under 11 minutes to go, and waiting, of course, for the first quick times of this session.
Now remember, the driver makeup in this part of the race is silver or silver gold. There was something up there which I only caught the back end
just
of.
Caught the back end of it. Was a green, and there we go. It is the number 29 car, and mercifully will clear that gravel trap. Gets, oddly enough, spins back onto track.
Nice. Louis Rosset, knowing precisely the dimensions of his car versus the track, and pots it back onto not quite the racing line, but select first gear, drive away, and pretend nothing ever happened.
It wasn't me.
No,
You never
indeed.
saw me.
Yeah, nothing to see here at all.
Must be a mistake on the data.
So your choices of driver combinations, 2 silvers or a silver and a gold. But the gold can't take part in this qualifying. Has to be a silver-rated driver. But in the majority of cases, there is a choice to be made, therefore. And interesting that Matteo Quintarelli, who shares with Lena Bula, they were winners at Le Mans a couple of months ago in the second race, the Saturday morning race, 50 winning by half a second over the 85 duo of Hugo Schwarzer and Adrian David.
So first quick times coming through. It's a little off that Pro-Am mark at the moment, 2:30, remember, for the Pro-Am car that set pole position there. 2:32.0 for Luciano Morano in the Forestier Racing by VPS number 92 car. That's the first offer. A couple of seconds up on Nicholas Bourne in the number 25 Reiter Engineering car. So it's Ligier, then to Duquesne, then the Odesse of Tom Fleming. Reasonable gaps still there. Fleming, though, pushing on in this session. So we want to watch. As I said, the weather might be a bit of a leveller, and whilst the Odesse have been reasonably reliable, they've not really found the pace. Waiting for Wyatt Brickercheck to come through here. I don't think this is going to be the lap that troubles as much, but now we might start to see something from that little Ligier. Dicar at the moment, where is he? He's 4th quickest, Wyatt, but still 2 seconds off the marker at the moment. Here's Tom Fleming, 7th after that first exchange. We've got yellow flags briefly out at turn 8. Some dramas there. Still lots of tippy-toeing going on here. Tom Fleming, young British driver, coming out of Ferrari Challenge, where he won at the prestigious Finale Mondiale a couple of seasons ago. That's attracted all sorts of attention, not just in this programme, but GT racing as well. One to watch for the future.
In this session, certainly 2 drivers to keep your eye out for are Matteo Quintarelli, who took pole in Barcelona in the 50 car. And I just had to check that it was Pierre-Alexandre Provost who did the pole at Le Castellet, even though it's his teammate, Alvise Rodea, who's been selected for qualifying duties today. As I say, because they run with 2 silvers, it is an either-or choice, and it's fun to see how the other driver gets on occasion with the qualifying duties on a Saturday morning into afternoon as it is now.
Nicholas Bourne goes to the top. It's a 2:31.260, but watch out for Adrian David. He is piling on the pressure here, and I think is looking set to get in amongst the pole position contenders. Nicholas Bourne from Thomas Imborg out. Oscar Tunyo, though, goes to the top, a 2:31.0. Still waiting for Adrian David, who's on a quick lap here. He goes to the top, and it's 1.8 seconds clear, and that is the first time that has beaten the pole position time in LMP3 Pro-Am.
Yeah, so there is going to be significant overlap when you compare the two sessions. As I say, there'll be a cleaner lineup for the cars, though, later today.
By the way, it's a Duquesne 1-2-4 at the moment.
Okay, so the Duquesnes were second and third in the previous session. Ades, the best of those, 8th in the hands of Tom Fleming. Both for Nielsen Racing, remember, the 7 car quicker than the sister number 4.
Yeah, the Ginetta, though, White Ricochet, track limits on this lap. And I think he's pulled out of making that a quick one, and I think that came quite early. Yes, and that's why. Big twitch, and absolutely will have thought better of pushing on this lap. Still has to wait for another opportunity.
Strangely enough, that will have been a massive disadvantage when you compare like for like on the straight up the Kemmel. But however, as soon as a car goes over the white line, whether it's going to gain or lose time, it is judged to not be a legal lap.
That's Adrian David, I think, was...
I think buying himself some track space, though. It wasn't actually a car problem, I'm going to say, touching wood.
We have got multiple cars up on the Delta for the provisional pole at the moment. And Adrian David, as you've seen, is not one of them as he tries to find racing room or qualifying room. 5 minutes to go. And improvements to be found.
Well, Tunyo's gone quicker, so on course to be a couple of tenths faster, at least through the first sector, than Adrian David's time. But unfortunately, he's lost time now through the middle sector.
He has dropped it there. And some of this is going to be traffic, Johnny, on the spray. Is where it's not quite played as well as some of these drivers might have hoped. Through goes the Writer Engineering car. And, that's Nicholas Bourne, and he goes through still in second, closes the gap just by a couple of tenths. Oscar Tunyo potentially could improve. It does so, goes onto the front row, but it's still a second back. 4.5 minutes to go.
Rousset briefly went third there, but Tunyo's come through with a better time. Max Meyer going pretty well in the number 20. He's still 7th. Theo Mercouris for Team Virage up to 5th place now in the number 16 Ligier. So Theo's time is a 2:30.7. But they're all trying to close in on 2:29s, low 2:29s for Adrian David.
Edgar Pierre in the second RSGP car makes it a Duquesne 1-2-3. Yeah. Adrian David, Edgar Pierre and Oscar Tunyo, and trouble, and not in a nice place either for the 87 car. There's damage to the front of that car as well. That has been in the barrier, and it's a red flag.
Not surprising, because a car sideways with cars going at rapid speed over the top of Radion, not having necessarily great visibility of a car absolutely sideways on. But yes, it's gone in the barrier. I don't know which side of the road it's connected, but clearly the front has been in the fence. That's another car entirely that straight lines Radion, the car 20. But to drivers left, in fact, Alvise Rodea, and great avoidance driving from 1 and 2. That might have been Theo Mercouris possibly in one of the Virage cars. There are 2 Virage cars, so Michael Pitamba is the other option in this session. Red flagged, 3 minutes and 44 seconds still to go. Question is, do we get a restart? Because, well, it's nip and tuck whether anyone's going to be able to get around and start a flying lap in 3 minutes and 44 seconds. But one car that is ready is Adrian David. Yeah. So feeling the heat, even though he's got a 7/10 of a second advantage over his teammate.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? It's over his teammates.
As things stand, RSGP lock out the front row.
What's the conversation you want over lunch? I'd rather be the guy in pole position. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So damage, but not huge damage to that car.
The heart rate will have been sky high, though, for Alvise Rodea. We're getting a provisional result.
It is the result. Session will not resume,
Okay.
we're being told.
So 2:29.248 for Adrian David, and that is the first RHGP pole of the season, I make it, therefore, because Radea and Provost, the spinning car, got the pole position in Le Castellet. We didn't have any pole sitters at Le Mans because none of those sessions actually got to a clean end. So congratulations to RHGP locking out that front row from Oscar Tuño for Gebhardt Motorsport. He was getting quicker and quicker. Fabulous result, by the way, for Duquesne. They didn't get quite all 4 cars in the top 4 positions, but first, second and third for Duquesne, ahead of the best Ligier Miklas Born for Reiter Engineering. Thanks to Graham Goodwin. We'll be back for the race later on and all the build-up at 25 to 4. See you then.